Richard Donnell Freeway Rick Ross, born January 26, 1960, is an American author and convicted drug trafficker best known for the drug empire he established in Los Angeles, California, in the early to mid-1980s. Ross attended school at Susan Miller Dorsey High School in Los Angeles. He played for the tennis team but was unable to get a college scholarship because he was illiterate. Ross has said that when he first saw crack cocaine as a teenager in 1979, he did not immediately believe it was a drug because it looked different from other drugs he had seen. The nickname Freeway came from Ross owning properties along the Los Angeles Harbor Freeway and living next to the 110. According to an October 2013 Esquire magazine article, between 1982 and 1989, federal prosecutors estimated, Ross bought and resold several metric tons of cocaine. In 1980, Ross' gross earnings were said to be in excess of $900 million, with a profit of nearly $300 million. Converted roughly to present-day dollars, $2.5 billion gross, and $850 million in profit, respectively. During the height of his drug dealing, Ross was said to have sold $3 million in one day. According to the Oakland Tribune, in the course of his rise, prosecutors estimate that Ross exported several tons of cocaine to New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania and elsewhere, and made more than $600 million between 1983 and 1984. In 1996, Ross was sentenced to life imprisonment under the Three Strikes Law after being convicted for purchasing more than 100 kilograms of cocaine from a federal agent in a sting operation. Later that year, a series of articles by journalist Gary Webb in the San Jose Mercury News revealed a connection between one of Ross's cocaine sources, Danilo Blandon, and the CIA as part of the Iran-Contra scandal. Ross's case was brought to a federal court of appeals which found that the Three Strikes Law had been erroneously applied and reduced his sentence to 20 years. He was released from custody on September 29, 2009. Ross began selling cocaine after failing to get a college sports scholarship to play tennis because of his illiteracy. He began spending time with an upholstery teacher at his school who revealed he dealt cocaine and offered Ross some to sell. Ross eventually began to ask for quantities to sell that exceeded what the teacher was willing to procure, so he turned to find a new dealer. Through a friend, Ross was introduced to a connection of two Nicaraguan exiles, Oscar Danilo Blandon and Norwen Meneses Candrero, to purchase cheaper Nicaraguan cocaine. Ross began distributing cocaine at $10,000 less per kilo than the average street price, distributing it to the Bloods and Crips street gangs. Ross eventually purchased his cocaine directly from Blandon and Meneses instead of going through the connection. By 1982, Ross had received his moniker of Freeway Ricky and claimed to have sold up to $3 million worth of cocaine per day, purchasing 455 kilos of cocaine a week. He initially invested most of his profits in houses and businesses, because he feared his mother would catch on to what he was doing if he started spending lavishly on himself. In a jailhouse interview with reporter Gary Webb, Ross said, "We were hiding our money from our mothers." With thousands of employees, Ross has said he operated drug sales not only in Los Angeles but in places across the country including St. Louis, New Orleans, Texas, Kansas City, Oklahoma, Indiana, Cincinnati, North Carolina, South Carolina, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Seattle. He has said that his most lucrative sales came from the Ohio area. He made similar claims in a 1996 PBS interview. According to the Oakland Tribune, in the course of his rise, prosecutors estimate that Ross exported several tons of cocaine to New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania and elsewhere, and made more than $600 million in the process. Adjusting for inflation using the Consumer Price Index, this becomes more than $1 billion. Much of his success at evading law enforcement was due to his ring's possession of police scanners and voice scramblers. Following one drug bust, an LA sheriff remarked that Ross's men had better equipment than we have. According to the October 2013 Esquire article, between 1982 and 1989, federal prosecutors estimated, Ross bought and resold several metric tons of cocaine. In 1980 dollars, his gross earnings were said to be in excess of $900 million, with a profit of nearly $300 million. Converted roughly to present-day dollars, $2.5 billion gross, and $850 million in profit, respectively. As his distribution empire grew to include 42 cities, the price he paid per kilo of powder cocaine dropped from as much as $60,000 to as low as $10,000. Ross's capture was facilitated by his main source, drug lord Oscar Danilo Blandon, who set up Ross. Blandon had close ties with the Contras, and had met with Contra leader Enrique Bermudez on several occasions. Blandon was the link between the CIA and Contras during the Iran-Contra affair. Gary Webb interviewed Ross several times before breaking the story in 1996. Ross claims that the reason he was unfairly tried initially was because of his involvement in the scandal. Blandon received a 24-month sentence for his drug trafficking charges, and following his release, was hired by the Drug Enforcement Administration where he was salaried at $42,000. The INS was ordered to grant Blandon a green card, despite the criminal convictions, to allow him to work for the D. The D has claimed they no longer employ Blandon, and his whereabouts are unknown. On June 18, 2010, Ross sued rapper Rick Ross, real name William Leonard Roberts II, for using his name, filing a copyright infringement lawsuit against Ross in a California federal court. Jay-Z had been called to testify in the lawsuit, as he was CEO of Def Jam when Ross was signed to the label. Ross sought $10 million in compensation in the lawsuit. After the lawsuit was dismissed on July 3, 2010, the album Teflon Don was released as scheduled on July 20, 2010. A federal judge ruled that the case should be refiled in California state court because it fell under California state law. Ross refiled the case with the state of California, and the federal case is on appeal in the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. The federal case was appealed to higher court. State case was filed in 2011 in California. Freeway Ross has refiled in Los Angeles Superior Court with publicity rights claims. Depositions have been ongoing. Trial was set for early May 2012. The case was dismissed by a judge in the Los Angeles Superior Court. The California state case was updated with a motion in Freeway Rick Ross's favor as to Warner Brothers records and their use of the name and image Rick Ross in July 2012. The New York Post reported that a trial was set for August 27, 2013 in Freeway Rick Ross vs. Rick Ross and Warner Music Group. On December 30, 2013, the court ruled in favor of the rapper Rick Ross, allowing him to keep the name based on a First Amendment ruling. In 2013, the Huffington Post reported that journalist and author Kathy Scott was co-writing Ross's autobiography with him, scheduled for release in 2014. The memoir, Freeway Rick Ross, The Untold Autobiography, was released at a book launch at the SO1 bookstore in Los Angeles on June 17, 2014 to a standing room-only crowd. Xet TV wrote in a review, "The book is fascinating for its unsentimental, inside look at his career on the streets of South Central, which started for Ross with car theft and quickly shifted to drugs and the big time." The autobiography was nominated for Forward Review's IndieFab Best Book of the Year Award 2014 for True Crime. Ross was a key figure in filmmaker Kevin Booth's documentary American Drug War, The Last White Hope. The second episode of the first season of Bet's American Gangster documentary series was focused on the story of Ricky Ross and his connection to the Iran-Contra scandal. Ross was a guest interview on VH1's Planet Rock History of Crack and Hip Hop documentary. Ross is featured in the 2015 documentary Freeway, Crack in the System, which details various levels of the drug trade, the Iran-Contra scandal, and mass incarceration. Since 2013, Ross has been a regular guest on The Joe Rogan Experience. In the 2014 film Kill the Messenger, Ross is portrayed by Michael K. Williams.